Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some news coming out from Ukraine. We're going to be talking about these F-16 fighter jets that the West is going to be delivering to them here very soon. So we've got a report here that says that Ukraine is saying that some of these F-16 fighter jets will be stationed at foreign bases, and not all of them will be stationed in their country. Now, this is pretty big news because obviously the Russians are not okay with them, storing these F-16s in other countries, and they also come out and said many times that these would be legitimate targets, that they would strike them, even if they were stored in other countries. And I would even think even a NATO nation, let's say Poland or maybe the Baltic nations, if they started to store these there, they say that these would be legitimate targets and they could come under attack. So obviously, they don't want to store all these F-16s inside of Ukraine because they could be destroyed very quickly if the Russians start to target them. And they've said many times that the F-16s would be considered a major threat to the country because they're nuclear capable as well. They can hold nuclear weapons on them. So I would think they would go after them very quickly the minute that they find out that these F-16s are in Ukraine. So, yeah, I've got lots of stuff we're going to be talking about here today, but we're going to mainly talk about these F-16 fighter jets and the threat of storing them in other nations and how that poses a threat to Russia. And could this push us to a closer inevitable conflict between NATO and Russia? So let's go ahead and get right into this and talk about it. This is on AP. Ukraine's Air Force may keep some F-16 warplanes abroad to protect them from Russian strikes. This just came out today, by the way. Ukraine may keep some of the F-16 fighter jets it sets to receive from its Western allies at foreign bases to protect them from Russian strikes, a senior Ukrainian military officer said Monday. Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Norway have committed to providing Ukraine with over 60 U.S.-made F-16 fighter jets to help it fend off Russian attacks. Ukrainian pilots are currently undergoing training to fly the warplanes ahead of the deliveries expected to start later this year. Suri Holubsov, head of aviation within Ukraine's Air Force, said that a certain number of aircraft will be stored at secure airbases, outside of Ukraine so that they are not targeted here. So they say a certain number. So my guess would probably be majority of them. Like I would think that they probably, in the very beginning at least, they'd probably store 70% of these or more outside of the country to protect them so they're not all destroyed quickly, because obviously it takes a lot of resources and funding and things like that for these countries to provide the F-16s. And many of the countries of the West and NATO members, they don't want to give these up because they want them for their own defense as well. So, yeah, that's a big problem for them. So it says here, Holubsov told the U.S. government-funded Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty that those F-16s could be used to replace damaged aircraft as they undergo repairs, as well as for training Ukrainian pilots abroad. This way, we can always have a certain number of aircraft in the operational fleet that corresponds to the number of pilots we have, he said. If there are more pilots, there will be more aircraft in Ukraine. So something that I was thinking is, yeah, they'll probably just store them in Western countries, and then whenever they're ready to deploy them, they'll probably rotate them out with the F-16s that are currently in Ukraine. They'll probably keep a small number there that they use for actual combat missions. And then the rest of them will probably be stored in other countries as kind of like a reserve or backup whenever they need to rotate them out. That's what I would think they would do. I don't think they would use these to start striking targets inside of Russian territory or even on the front line or anything like that when they are actually deployed from NATO nations. That's what I would think, but who knows what they'll plan to do. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that Moscow could consider launching strikes at facilities in NATO countries if they host the warplanes used in Ukraine. If they are stationed at air bases outside the Ukrainian borders and used in combat, we will have to see how and where to strike the assets used in combat against us, Putin said last year. It poses a serious danger of NATO being further drawn into the conflict. In March, the Russian leader again warned Ukraine's Western allies against providing air bases from where the F-16s could launch sorties against the Kremlin's forces. Those bases would become a legitimate target, he said. F-16s are capable of carrying nuclear weapons, and we also need to take that into account while organizing our combat operations. So again, that's a big problem for Russia, that they've come out many times, said that these F-16s, considering that they're nuclear capable, that they'd be legitimate targets and they would go after them. They'd be priority targets as well that they'd want to destroy them. So we'll have to see how they respond once Ukraine starts actually using these, because as far as we know, they don't have any yet, but they're going to be getting some here very soon, within the next few months, maybe sooner. On Monday, Andrei Kartapolov, the head of defense committee in the Russian parliament's lower house, told the state RIA Novosti news agency that NATO bases hosting Ukrainian F-16s would be legitimate targets for Moscow if the warplanes use them to launch attacks on Russia. The F-16s require a high standard of runways and reinforced hangars to protect them from attacks on the ground. It's not clear how many Ukrainian air bases can meet those requirements, and Russia would be certain to quickly target a few that would accommodate them once the jets arrive. So yeah, you would think that that would happen. Russia would probably start targeting these air bases inside of Ukraine, so that way they cannot, deploy them from these air bases that Ukraine would use. And considering that, they need sophisticated runways and hangars to protect them, Ukraine would obviously not exactly have this infrastructure unless they were starting to build them or something, considering that they don't really have F-16s themselves. So yeah, we would most likely, what I would think is we'd probably see a good majority of them stored outside of the country. Just hopefully they don't use them and deploy them from these nations to attack inside of Russia or attack Russian troops, because that's where they draw the red line there. So Holubsov noted that the F-16s will help protect frontline and border regions from Russian glide bombs that have inflicted significant damage to both troops and residential areas, including Kharkiv. Glide bombs are heavy Soviet air bombs fitted with precision guidance systems and launched from aircraft flying out of range of air defenses. I think we'll succeed, first of all, in pushing back the aircraft that drop glide bombs farther from the contact line, he said. If we manage to push them back at least another 30 to 50 kilometers or 19 to 31 miles, this can already be considered a turning point and an achievement, if not of superiority, then a parity in the airspace. So I'll cite this down below if you guys want to read the rest of this. But regarding this with these glide bombs, yeah, that's been a big problem for Ukraine as well. Is they can't shoot down these aircraft that launch these glide bombs, because they'll deploy these glide bombs from way far away from the front line, and air defenses cannot target them because of how far away they are. And these glide bombs will, they'll glide for a very long stretch of land and then explode inside of Ukrainian territory. And these bombs are very powerful too. They've got some that are 500 kilograms. They've got 1,000, I think 2,000, even 3,000 kilogram bombs that are very devastating. I've seen lots of video footage of these glide bombs, and they're obviously a huge issue for Ukraine to sort this out. So yeah, if they had F-16s, they could start targeting these aircraft that deploy them, and that would greatly enhance their ability to protect the skies over the front line, especially in the Kharkiv region, which comes under attack quite a bit. So yeah, I just wanted to share this news here with you and let you know that looks like they're going to be stationing many of these at foreign bases outside of Ukraine. And just hopefully they don't choose to deploy them directly from these nations. I wouldn't think they would. I would think they just rotate them out from inside of Ukraine. But it's going to get very interesting over here. And I also did a report this morning talking about Crimea coming under attack by ATACMS. And during this attack, we also had some reports that, the Russians are going to be redeploying their air defense units away from Crimea and starting to send them over to the Belgorod region. So I wonder if this is also why they're getting prepared for these F-16s to start arriving in the skies over that area. And maybe they want to have the ability to start shooting these down and also protect their own aircraft when their aircraft comes in to start launching strikes in that area. So it's something that I thought about as well, and I think that kind of makes sense with that story of them moving their air defense units away from Crimea and starting to bolster the Belgorod region. So let me know what you think down below regarding this story. That's going to be it for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. And also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, I hope y'all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.